For the longest time, video game movies were the place where good ideas went to die. Studios had the audience, they had the brand recognition, they had decades of built-in fans. This should be easy, right? And somehow they still couldn't make it work. Dead or Alive flopped. Street Fighter: Legend of Chun-Li flopped. Blood Rain flopped. Fast forward a bit, and movies like Warcraft look like they should have been massive. Global fan base, huge scale, and recognizable IP. And to be fair, it did pull in around $439 million worldwide. So that does sound like a win until you realize the budget was around $270 million, including marketing. So not a disaster, but suddenly that hit starts looking more like a coin flip. That was the problem. For years, video game movies weren't just inconsistent, they were expensive. Then something interesting started to happen. Not overnight, not all at once, but slowly the numbers started tightening. Let's take Rampage. About a $120 million budget, around $428 million profit worldwide. Better, not incredible, but you're starting to see the math make more sense. Same thing with Detective Pikachu. Roughly $150 million to make, about $450 million back. Again, solid, but still not enough to change the narrative. Nobody was looking at these and saying, this is the future of Hollywood. Then studios started pulling budgets down and something clicked. Let's look at Sonic the Hedgehog. Around 85 to 90 million to make, about 320 million worldwide. Now we're talking, because that's not just revenue, that's margin. Then the sequel. The budget jumps to about 110 million, but now it's pulling in over 400 million. That's consistency. That's repeatable. And suddenly, Sega isn't just licensing a character, they're sitting on a film franchise. And then you get something like Uncharted. Around $120 million budget, and a return of 407 million worldwide. Critics did not love it. Didn't matter. People showed up anyway, and it made money. That's the shift. For the first time, these movies didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to be profitable. But here's where things really start to change, because there's a second lane opening up at the same time. Five Nights at Freddy's. This one cost around $20 million to make. I'll say that again, $20 million. And it went on to bring close to $300 million worldwide. That's not a hit, that is an absurd return. And it proves something Hollywood had been missing for years. You don't need a massive budget, you need a locked-in audience. And even on the smaller end, you've got projects like Iron Lung. Much smaller scale, but built around a dedicated fan base, controlling costs, and a creator-first approach. Sources say this one clocked around 3 to 5 million to make, with almost no spend on marketing thanks to the popularity of the filmmaker Markiplier and his social media presence. To date, it's brought in roughly $64 million. Let that sink in. Roughly 16 times return on the budget. This means even without blockbuster numbers, it can still win. So now you've got two completely different strategies working at the same time. Big budget, global IP, and lean, fan-driven horror, both making money. And then you get the movie that blows the entire ceiling off, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. About $100 million to produce, over $1.3 billion worldwide. That's not just a win, that is complete domination. And here's the part of that that really matters. Nintendo didn't just hand this off, they stayed involved, they protected the brand, they partnered instead of selling. So when this movie exploded, they didn't just benefit from exposure, they shared in the upside. And by the time you get to something like Minecraft, one of the biggest games ever made, turning into one of the biggest films of the year, it's not even surprising anymore, it's expected. But don't get it twisted, they're not all cash cows. Let's take Borderlands. Big IP, recognizable cast, heavy budget, reportedly over 120 million. And it completely fell apart in the box office, bringing in only 33 million because this is still Hollywood. So if you miss the tone, if you ignore the fan base, if you treat the IP like a shortcut instead of an asset, it will punish you. That's the difference now. It's not that video game movies can't fail, it's that we finally know why they succeed. Video game movies didn't suddenly get better at storytelling, they got better at business. Lower budgets, stronger IP control, built-in audiences that were already waiting. And if you zoom out, the pattern becomes obvious. The actors aren't the biggest winners. The studios aren't even the biggest winners. It's the companies that own the games. Nintendo, Sega, the Pokemon Company. They spent decades building these audiences, and now Hollywood is finally paying them for it. For years, adapting video games was a risk. Now it's turning into the new strategy. Next week, we'll be looking at a movie franchise that started out as a modestly produced street racing drama that almost failed to one of the biggest global powerhouses to come out of Hollywood. Now, like the video and subscribe to the damn channel or I'll get Donkey Kong to launch a red shell up your tailpipe.